"It is clear," replied Gauthier Ralph, "and we have nothing to do but to present Mr. Fogg's check at Baring's tomorrow." At this moment the hands of the club clock pointed to 20 minutes to 9. "5 minutes more," said Andrew Stuart. The five gentlemen looked at each other. Their anxiety was becoming intense, but not wishing to betray it, they readily assented to Mr. Fallentin's proposal of a rubber. "I wouldn't give up my 4,000 of the bet," said Andrew Stuart as he took his seat, "for 3,999. The clock indicated 18 minutes to 9. The players took up their cards, but could not keep their eyes off the clock. Certainly, however secure they felt, minutes had never been so long to them. 17 minutes to 9, said Thomas Flanagan as he cut the cards which Ralph handed to them. Then there was a moment of silence. The great salon was perfectly quiet, but the murmurs of the crowd outside were heard. With now and then a shrill cry, the pendulum beat the seconds, which each player eagerly counted as he listened with mathematical regularity. 16 minutes to 9, said John Sullivan in a voice which betrayed his emotion. 1 minute more and the wager would be won. Andrew Stuart and his partners suspended their game. They left their cards and counted the second. At the 40th second, nothing. At the 50th, still nothing. At the 55th, a loud cry was heard in the street, followed by applause, hurrahs, and some fierce growls. The players rose from their seats. "Here I am, gentlemen." At the 57th second, the door of the salon opened, and the pendulum had not beat the 60th second when Phileas Fogg appeared, followed by an excited crowd who had forced their way through the club doors, and in his calm voice said, "Here I am, gentlemen." Chapter 37, in which it is shown that Phileas Fogg gained nothing by his tour around the world, unless it were happiness. Yes, Phileas Fogg in person. The reader will remember that at 5 minutes past 8 in the evening, about 25 hours after the arrival of the travellers in London, Passepartout had been sent by his master to engage the services of the Reverend Samuel Wilson in a certain marriage ceremony which was to take place the next day. With his hair in disorder and without his hat, he ran. Passepartout went on his errand enchanted. He soon reached the clergyman's house, but found him not at home. Passepartout waited a good 20 minutes, and when he left the reverend gentleman it was 35 minutes past 8. But in what a state he was! With his hair in disorder and without his hat, he ran along the street as never man was seen to run before, overturning passers-by, rushing over the sidewalk like a water spout. In 3 minutes he was in Savile Row again, and staggered back into Mr. Fogg's room. He could not speak. "What is the matter?" asked Mr. Fogg. "My master," gasped Passepartout. "Marriage impossible." "Impossible? Impossible for tomorrow. Why so?" "Because tomorrow is Sunday." "Monday," replied Mr. Fogg. "No, today is Saturday." "Saturday? Impossible." Yes, cried Passepartout. You have made a mistake of 1 day. We arrived 24 hours ahead of time, but there are only 10 minutes left." Passepartout had seized his master by the collar and was dragging him along with irresistible force. Phileas Fogg, thus kidnapped, without having time to think, left his house, jumped into a cab, promised £100 to the cabman, and having run over 2 dogs and overturned 5 carriages, reached the Reform Club. The clock indicated 9:15 when he appeared in the great salon. Phileas Fogg had accomplished the journey around the world in 80 days. Phileas Fogg had won his wager of 20,000 pounds. How was it that a man so exact and fastidious could have made this error of a day? How come he to think that he had arrived in London on Saturday, the 21st day of December, when it was really Friday, the 20th, the 79th day only from his departure? The cause of the error is very simple. Phileas Fogg had, without suspecting it, gained 1 day on his journey, and this merely because he had travelled constantly eastward. He would, on the contrary, have lost a day had he gone in the opposite direction, that is, westward. In journeying eastward, he had gone towards the sun, and the days therefore diminished for him as many times 4 minutes as he crossed degrees in this direction. There are 360 degrees on the circumference of the earth, and these 360 degrees multiplied by 4 minutes give precisely 24 hours. That is the day unconsciously gained. In other words, while Phileas Fogg, going eastward, saw the sun pass the meridian 80 times, his friends in London only saw it pass the meridian 79 times. This is why they awaited him at the Reform Club on Saturday and not Sunday, as Mr. Fogg thought.